So rather than speak about right and wrong in relation to theology, which I think is perhaps a bit too simplistic, or it leads us in the wrong direction, I would prefer to talk about faithfulness and about thinking about theology less in terms of black and white, right and wrong, and more in terms about a complex process of faithfulness. Because part of the problem, it seems to me, of simply categories of right or wrong is that it sounds as if the point of theology is simply to arrive at a set of answers or a set of positions that are either right or wrong. And that, I think, simply reduces the theological task to a series of possessing a set of answers. And I think that theology ultimately is never about possessing or having mastery over a set of answers. It's about the struggle, the lifelong, never-ending struggle to be faithful to something, really to someone, to Jesus himself, who is never reducible to right or wrong, right? So that's not to say that there's no criteria that we can navigate and judge whether certain theological positions are not faithful or more faithful than other positions. But simply framing it in terms of right and wrong, I think, is unhelpful. So maybe framing it more in terms of things like what sort of life does this theology promote? What sorts of actions towards others does this theology promote? Does this theological position or this way of thinking theologically open us more to the mystery of God? Or does it close God down and reduce God to something of our measure and control? Then that's how I would talk about faithfulness. Because I think that to be faithful to the God that we meet in Jesus is to be faithful to a mystery that we can never fully grasp or control. And it's also a mystery that we can never use as a weapon over against other people. Jesus himself said basically this when he summed up the entire law in, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul and all your strength, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." And for him, that's the very heart of the law. And any interpretation of the law or any use of the law or of Israel's scripture that didn't promote the love of God and love of neighbor, that was against the very heart of it all. St. Augustine, who was a theologian in the 4th and 5th century, said something very similar about interpreting the Bible. He said something that, how do you know whether an interpretation of the Bible is right or wrong? Well, I'm not sure he used those language, but faithful or not faithful, perhaps, is what he said. And basically he said that any reading of Scripture that does not promote love of neighbor is automatically a wrong reading of Scripture. That all readings of Scripture have to promote love of neighbor, or they're not a faithful reading of Scripture. So I think those kinds of things are more helpful in navigating different theological positions, rather than simply right or wrong, but talking about a more expansive sense is, does this promote faithfulness?